last year, I was coming back from Italy in November, and actually my seatmate all the way from Italy to Kenya was a lady from WFP, World Food Program. And when I engaged her, she was a Germany. When I engaged her, she told me, I'm headed to Kakuma refugee camp, and I'm going to work with Dr. Peter on a project of, a WFP program that they are doing in Kakuma refugee camp. So that is when I realized Hydroponics Africa is not just a local company, it's actually global. So that is a testimony, Dr. Peter, that, that was last year, November. And it's amazing to know what you're doing with the World Food Program. Roger Wekoba, I have done meetings with him. He's a lead trainer of Kenya School of Industrialization. Now, if anybody has to know something tonight, is a question of industrialization, because industrialization is a question of Africa. There's no other continent globally that can industrialize based on agriculture and manufacturing as much as Africa, because Africa should be and is the richest continent in terms of raw material and minerals. So we, Roger Wekoba, we're going to have you tonight, but I'm still going to have you back, and like we discussed during the day, next week to discuss more about manufacturing. There are so many people today who are doing sanitizers, who are doing, it's called what, the detergents, the hand wash. And when I met Roger before even COVID-19, one thing that he did was to introduce me to detergents and hand wash. And we want to know, how does it work? Can it begin? One thing that Mr. Roger, you surprised me with, is that someone can actually start without a huge capital, and that you can start with a sufuria in your kitchen and firewood, and there you go, and you have soap already made. So Mr. Roger is going to take us through that tree tonight and tell us what exactly does it mean to industrialize. And apart from just industrializing, how can we start with a lean startup? So tonight, just to confirm whether Perez is in yet. All right, I think she's not in yet. Let me just have the panelists, the two that I have already, start by telling us more about themselves, about the companies that they represent. I want it to be a flowing discussion. I am looking at the chat in my inbox. Please drop the questions that you have for Dr. Peter and for Roger, and also for Perez. Now, let me just talk about Perez before she comes in. Perez, she came to the World Trade Trade Fair. I think it was 2 years ago or something, which was in Kenya. I've also watched her present to different countries in Europe. And when she came to Kenya, Perez went to Kisumu, and she gathered some farmers in Kisumu. And she trained them on how to grow sweet potato. And that was very interesting, because when I engaged Perez, I thought sweet potatoes are just for selling in the streets. Like today we are talking about Maya Prado and all the likes, people turning candles and Mercedes-Benz to kiosks. So now these gentlemen in Kisumu are able to grow sweet potato and export them to UK, where they are processed into more better finished products. And that is value addition. And just before I bring the panelists to talk to us, okay, please, once again, mute on your end so that I don't have to remove you. So please make sure you mute or keep a very humble background so that we can have a discussion here. So value addition in Africa has been a big challenge. And the problem we have is with the season for tomatoes, we all go into growing tomatoes. And then we flood them in the market in a way that the price just goes down. It's like nobody ever told us that we can process a farm produce to a finished product. And that is a very interesting concern that I would want to discuss tonight. Yeah, I'm just praying so much that Perez comes through without any challenge, that she can tell us
I
how
am
can you
here,
do.
Geoffrey, I'm here now. Oh, my
Good.
goodness. Oh, Lord, I don't know what's wrong from this end. Maybe it's the room where I am. I have no idea, but I'm here now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Amazing. Then let me get everyone to get started with this discussion. We have Perez Ochieng already in. Then we have Roger Wekoba, who is also in, and we have Dr. Peter, who is in. So let me allow Dr. Peter to start by telling us, introducing himself to us. I would want to start there. Dr. Peter, kindly introduce yourself to us, who you are and what you do, kindly.
Okay, good evening, all of you. My name is Dr. Peter Chege. I'm the CEO and founder of Hydroponics Africa Limited. So I will start by defining hydroponics. I know most of you knows what is it. Hydroponics is growing crops without soil. And it's not a new technology. It has been there for many years. So my work was to customize hydroponics to work at African context. So we have been able to simplify hydroponics so that it uses less water, less energy, and also grow more crops vertically. So we have been able to decide 5 different hydroponic systems based on the climate, like what you've said about Kakuma refugee camps in Turkana, where the temperatures are about over 40 degrees centigrade. So there we have a system which fits that climate. We have a system which is able to grow different types of crops, like tomatoes, capsicum, root tubers. So we have all these so that at least we can grow foods using less water, less energy, and more yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be back to you, Dr. Peter, for more information. Let me go to Roger Wekoba. Please introduce yourself to the team and what you do.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Brother Jeffrey, for inviting me, for having me on the program. And just to let you know, this is my first on Zoom, so it's a great learning experience.
Welcome, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Now, for me, like I've always said, when you cut my veins, what flows out is just industrialization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I run a company called Kenya School of Industrialization, which I registered way back in 2012 to push the industrialization agenda, just to empower the African. Now, all this started when I was selling industrial machinery. I had an opportunity to travel around I was managing about 8 countries around the wider East Africa.
Okay.
And I had a lot of exposure in Europe and Middle East. Now, one thing I discovered is the African is not engaged in manufacturing, and that bothered me a lot. So that took me on a journey to get to understand why. In the process of that, I've authored 3 books. The first book was Industrialize Yourself. The aim of the book was to demystify manufacturing, just to get to understand, to unlock, to help Africans understand that manufacturing is not rocket science. Then I've done another book called Wealth Transfer. This one is a biblical best book, just to get Christians to understand that industrialization is God's idea. Now, the first command that God gives to man gives us the function of man in Genesis 1:26, where he says, "Be fruitful." Now, when you analyze that, it just describes the principle of manufacturing. Then I've done another book called Neglected Value, which is a very powerful book, outlining why Africa is poor and why we are not in manufacturing. Now, you get to realize that Africa has the largest resource potential, yet we have not utilized it. I just got to learn that about 60% of the world's arable land, which is lying fallow, is in Africa. So these are great opportunities that we have that we've not utilized. Now, there are a lot of foundational issues, and I think most of those things we'll handle next week, looking at the educational background, where just from the colonial period, how it has come to affect our mindset, and where it has caused Africans to shy away from manufacturing. And then also after writing the 3 books, I'm doing the 4th book. It's called Cottage Industrialization. Now, what I'm doing in cottage industrialization is I'm breaking it down to the individual participation. Because when you look at the national vision of saying we want to industrialize a nation, we have to go to the village and engage the village mama. How does she become relevant to industrializing a nation? Now, that and what we had in Mungi, and I was telling you that in every home there is an industry. As long as you have a sufuria, you have a cooking stick, you have fire, you have a knife, you have an industry. What you're lacking is knowledge. So my responsibility is to come in and facilitate that knowledge, give you that know-how, so that you are able to know, even as you're growing your tomatoes, instead of selling the raw tomatoes, you can add value to the tomatoes and increase value. Because one of the things that we should know is that when the productive capacity of a people is increased, then wealth is created in that particular people. So unless we learn how to increase our productivity, then we are not going to be able to create wealth. I think the other things we'll be able to share as we continue.
Amazing. I'll ask you a few questions before we even end the show. And thank you for that insight. That's quite informative. I want to bring in Perez just for introduction before I ask a few questions, and then I shoot questions that are coming through the chat room. Perez, kindly come through and introduce yourself to us and what you're doing. All right, I'm trying to locate Perez. You know, can you hear me, Perez? Okay, I think I've lost Perez. I'm going to wait for her to come through, but I would go back to Peter. You know, I know Zoom is not so familiar with so many people, but I know Perez is able to get through to me because I know we have engaged through Zoom. All right, anyway, Peter, let me get back to you, sir. I want to throw this question to you because so many people, and especially during this period of COVID-19, we have seen people convert their vehicles to small kiosks. I mean, there's an article I was reading which has been circulating. Someone who was saying he went past Windsor Hotel and then he found a Mercedes-Benz, a BMW, and a Prado. And some of you have read that story. Now tell us, Peter, how can someone who has been crushed by the economy currently, because people are really down, and that is the truth, how can someone start doing farming with what they have? Someone has a 50 by 100 plot, or they even have a compound, a small compound. When I came to your project in Lodwar, I saw you growing crops even on a wall. And people want to know, how do you do this magic? How do you do this magic? Please, Peter, break down hydroponics to a layman to understand where they can start and how they can go about it. Peter?
Okay, thank you very much. So when I was schooling, I was taught by my teacher that crops has to grow in the soil. But now I realize through hydroponics that crops does not require soil. Soil is just for holding the nutrients. So once now you remove soil, you'll be able to grow crops vertically. As you have said, we mount a hydroponic system on walls of the building because we don't require soil, because we just need to have a very light media that we put, and then you put water and the nutrients. That way you'll be able to garden without a garden. So this has really helped, especially now because of urbanization or people lacking space and people living in Nairobi and they want to feed. We have been able to design a system, vertical system, which can even go either 2 meters vertically, 3 meters, 6 meters, up to 12 meters. So meaning that in a meter square, you can be able to grow about 10 times more crops than you would grow vertically. Horizontally in conventional method of farming. So this one will help people in urban to grow more food in a 1/8 of an acre if you have your own building and some maybe animals who can also be able to grow enough vegetables and also other food crops that you can be able to sell and get some income. So it has come to a point whereby I think now land is not important. What is important is that we can be able to go vertical and be able to feed. So we have developed this system, and the best thing of this simplified hydroponics vertical system is it does not use electricity, because we have come up with a special drip which is able to give the crops the water and the nutrients without use of electricity, meaning that even the cost of now pumping is not there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. But then just before I proceed to, because I can, Perez is in, I'm just trying to locate her and get her here. Let me see, Perez, I will unmute everybody, please, because I'm trying to get Perez. This is technological hitches. So if I unmute everybody, please make sure that you mute yourself so that Perez can come through. So I only want to hear Perez talking. So I've unmuted everybody. Perez, can you hear me?
I can hear you all, guys. I'm just listening. I'm better off just listening this side. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I had to mute everyone because of the noise. So please, before I went to Peter for a question, I wanted you to introduce yourself, and there are so many questions on export. Please bring it out and tell us what you're doing.
How many minutes do you want for introduction? 1 hour or 10 minutes?
It's midnight in Kenya, please.
All right. I'll try to be fair. Yes, yeah. First of all, I'm sorry that it's been a technical hitch. I don't know from where, or this end or that end, I'm not sure. Okay. But, you know, I'm based in London, UK, and my background is accounting, finance, and business development. But my involvement in food and manufacturing is I've just attained Masters in Food Innovation, Packaging, and Manufacturing. And I did this specifically because I had a great interest in seeing how I can open access to market for smallholder farmers in Kenya. So it's been a 4 years journey of a lot of discoveries, and I hope I'm able to share as much as I can with the participants today.
Yeah, please do.
The challenges, the opportunities, what I have done, my own research, and basically what future I see and where the opportunities lie and how people can get better. So specifically, my specialist area is food innovation, new product development, looking at new markets, understanding the consumer needs and targeting those markets. But that links down all the way to agriculture, where the crop comes from farm level all through the supply chain, the technologies involved, the people that you need to involve to get products from farm to the consumer. So there's a lot of logistical issues, which I think I want to start from a logistical point of view.
Yes, please.
That, one of my biggest discovery is that smallholder farmers forget that they're part of a big supply chain. Mm-hmm. So if you do not understand your complete supply chain, you produce to a market that you don't understand. And that's why we talk about issues of excess production or during harvest. But losses during harvest is not just excess production. Sometimes it's just that there's no technology for post-harvest handling and storing that crop to give it a longer shelf life. Now, if you are going to be supplying an international market, first and foremost, you must know how you're going to store your product to increase the shelf life. You cannot supply international market based on a weekly or annual or biannual harvest. Okay. So one of the biggest challenges that I see is that the lack of technology and resources to have a warehousing system where crops can be stored to increase the shelf life to assure sustainable supply throughout the year. And if you are going to get into exporting, this is really, really critical that you are able to, sorry guys, there's a lot of noise coming from outside because today is the day that we clap for the NHS.
Oh, it's from your side. I was trying to locate the noise.
Yes, so my kids are out knocking pots and pans and everything. People come out with everything to knock. It's It's such a short time, but
No
it's so
problem.
noisy all over. So all the neighbors and the cars and everything. So yeah, but
I can hear you clearly.
I,
We can hear you.
but you can hear the pots and pans, can you?
Yes, yes. I want to throw a question to you, Perez, just before we continue. There's a lot of people here are even wondering, does it happen that people actually grow crops in Kenya for export? And when does someone start? You know, like the 101 for, you know, zombies, let me, for dummies, not zombies, for dummies, you know, the dummy understanding of where do I start with export? Now, let me break it down again for you. Most people here have 1 acre, others have a plot or a quarter acre, and it's okay, they bought because they were speculating. People have really been sold plots. Where can someone start to even get to think of exporting? Please bring us from that level of this is a new farmer now until the export. How does it happen?
God, that question can be answered in so many ways depending on where you are or where you live. If you live in areas that are traditionally export areas, so if you look at, say, for example, places where Kenya grows French beans, where Kenya grows the rabayas, the Asian vegetables. So this is typically Meru, Mount Kenya area, going down this area. Your best bet of getting into export market is to become a grower for one of the exporters. So first of all, understanding that as a farmer, you are not going to just farm, harvest your crop and put it in some big box or pot and send it to Jomo Kenyatta Airport and send it off. There are all sorts of internal country regulations that regulate export before you even look at what we require in the UK or whatever market you're going to export to. So before you can export produce, you've got to be a registered exporter. It costs money to be a registered exporter, and registered exporters are under regulatory inspection. They pay money to be registered. They undertake trainings which are compulsory. Some of them are called technical assistance by EU, because you are importing or exporting to a country and they expect you to understand what are their food safety regulations. Now, this is something that they do not do individually to individuals or to exporters, but it's done at country level. Because one of the things that I'd like you to understand is that as a farmer, whatever your supply chain, whether you decide to become an exporter yourself, you register as an exporter, or you are supplying an exporter who contracts you to produce to them to specification, the minute that crop or product leaves Kenya and lands into a country of, say, for example, okay, UK, or goes to Germany or whatever country you're exporting to, it ceases to be your crop. It's a country crop. It's the name Kenya that is on that crop. And if there's anything wrong with it, say, for example, there are high levels of pesticides, which we call MRA levels, or there's the problem with quality, it's Kenya country that is going to be penalized. And that is why the technical assistance goes back into Kenya as a country. And that's why you have people like KEPIS, you have people like HD, I think they changed their name, they're now called APA, different bodies that regulate export. So before you can export, there are regulations internally in the country that you must adhere to. There are trainings that you must attend. There are compliances that you must achieve before you're given an export license, okay? So as a farmer, you must understand where do you want to be along this just in-country supply chain. You haven't even thought of a market in Europe, who you're selling to, but it's how do you practically get your crop out of the country, okay? So I hope that's understandable. You can go individually or you can supply an existing exporter.
Tell us, and this is my second question, so I can go back to Roger and Peter. How did you do it with, because I understand a good number of farmers were able to do sweet potatoes, and the value process, the value addition was well done. I've shared products before you came through, for those who came early. It's very interesting to see sweet potatoes, crisps, and powder and I saw Mzungu eating some cake made of sweet potato. So tell us about value addition, because must we export to do value addition, or can we do a value addition in Kenya? Please tell us about value addition.
Geoffrey, you're getting into dangerous territories now.
That is what I call you for.
First of all, what we call value addition in Kenya, it's so different from what we call it in this other part of the world, where if you are saying my target market is UK, and obviously when you're in UK, you're already in Europe, even though technically UK is no longer in Europe, but the regulations are the same. The value addition that we do in Kenya, and it's my country and I love it with all my beats and everything, but there's a lot of misconception as to what value addition is. You know,
okay.
A lot of value addition, it's more or less like coping. There's no science behind it. You know, if you go now to Kenya, you'll find there's like 20 sweet potato factories doing potato flour. You know,
okay.
there's one, I think there's white, there's milk. And so people are just copying what others are doing, which they, in their own understanding, it's the right thing to do. But from a European perspective, a lot of products that developed is science-based. Somebody actually sits somewhere and does a lot of research. There's a lot of biologists involved in developing a product. There's a lot of marketeers involved in developing a product. And the new product development is not just about making flour. You know, what flour, what's the target market? And I just want to give you a little example of the consumer market in the UK. The consumer market in UK and Europe are becoming very interesting because they're actually the drivers. You know, they're the ones who open and close and shut markets. And they demand different things according to who they are. So I just to give you types of 5 examples of consumers, for example. There's a big drive now to what is called veganism. Do you know what veganism is? The people who don't eat meat. And these people are creating a whole lot of new markets for vegan products. And their main interest in veganism is the fact that they believe that, you know, animals should not be slaughtered, and that animals are not environmental friendly because they produce greenhouse gases, and they have all sorts of other beliefs that actually back up them. And there's a growing number of them, and they go to the shelf and they decide what to take off the shelf and what not to take off the shelf. So if you're going to serve the vegan market as a farmer or as a producer, the first thing you need to be thinking is, what sort of products do vegans eat? And what are the issues that they want to address? For example, how do you deal with animals? What are your animal rights? And then you have another consumer that is more around health conscious. Vegans are not necessarily health conscious. These are people who want to produce authentic, natural.
Sorry, just check your mic. I think there's some noise from your mic.
I actually don't even have a mic. I'm using my laptop mic. I'm not here.
Right, yeah.
So, are you okay? Let me try and keep away from the laptop. I haven't touched a single thing. My hands are free, as you can see.
All right, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, so there's the natural ingredients market where people just natural. Previously, these were the people who were in the organic market. But now, it's not about organic. It's about the natural authenticity of a product. Say, for example, if you're going to make bread, there's a big market for what they call seeded bread, you know, fortified with natural seeds, like, say, for example, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, all sorts of things in this bread to make it natural and healthy. Sorry, guys, have you lost me again, or I'm still here?
No, you are. I'm giving you time because we can hear you loud and clear. People are taking notes.
So this kind of market is a different group of consumers. So they just want to make sure their product is safe to consume. It's authentic, natural. There are no preservatives in their food. They're not concerned about mileage. They're not concerned about carbon footprint. So this is a different consumer market. Then there's another consumer market, which is the young people. And this is the biggest market at the moment. The young people are people who want fast-moving consumer goods. They want to prepare their meal in 10 or 15 minutes. And what drives their meal preparation is the more technology they can use to prepare their meals, the easier it is for them. So I have my kids, they can cook, what is it called? The popular one they do from West Africa is this hot rice. Is it called, God, what's the name of this? It's a West African rice and it's full of hot pepper. You know, I'll find a name for you in a minute. And the reason why these people are able to do this is there's clear written instruction in a language that they understand. And so from wherever they are, whether they're university desk or whether they've just come from working for high profile companies that drive them crazy like KPMG, JP Morgan, where, you know, they are driven to work like mad, they just want to come home and prepare a meal, and they want to do it in the shortest time possible. So clear instructions. Part of the food is partly cooked, so it's either microwaved or it's either oven baked with very little interaction with them. They don't have time to cut, chop, and do what. Now, these people are more driven by the technology in packaging, because it's the packaging that offers them the long shelf life they want or keeps the product safe and fresh the way they want it. So again, these are driven by a different requirement. So if that's the target market you're looking, you are not just going to pack your potato in some bag and throw it in here. Your bag is going to be technologically driven. So when they go to supermarket, they want to scan it. OCR is key and critical. They want to scan it and they don't want to read. They are going to scan it, they are going to read from their phone. And they want to know about the background of this product, how it got here, where it was farmed, how it has been handled. It's a product that needs temperature control. Through that scanner, they should be able to see that the temperatures of that product has been maintained, and there's all sorts of technology that does that to ensure that the product has been temperature controlled throughout the supply chain.
Hold it there, Perez. I want to throw this to Roger, and I've seen question, Roger, that some people are recommending. Please, if you have a question, drop it like a chat, or, you know, there's a chat room in your application. Write a question so I can ask either Roger or Peter or Perez. I want to ask Roger, we are in a critical season. There's something called, we are calling pivoting, all right? This is a scenario that many companies have found themselves that they were doing an X business, and X business is now not giving them results. They want to go into what can give them the results, all right? And definitely, farming is, quote unquote, is assumably being, you know, kind of a target area where many companies are trying to pivot towards. Do you think now is time for Africa, and we're in Kenya, do you think it's time for Africa to think farming? Do you think it's time for Africa to think feeding Europe, feeding Australia, feeding you know, US? Do you think it's time? You are in industrialization. Please, Roger, talk to us.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. That is a good question. I think in agriculture is a huge industry. Like I mentioned before, that Africa has about 60% of the world's arable land that is remaining unfarmed. That is what we call neglected potential. So there is huge value that is being unutilized in terms of the land resource that can be utilized. Now the population is growing very fast. For Africa alone, it says that by 2050, the population of Africa may double to about 4 billion. Now, if we are struggling to feed 2 billion people, now who will feed the 4 billion people that are coming? So that shows that there's a huge potential in terms of there's a huge business potential in agriculture. Now, I will just mention a few facts here. When you look at the import statistics of the manufactured products that are coming into Kenya or even into the region that are agro-based, say for example, tomatoes. In 2017, 2018, Kenya alone imported about 700 million worth of tomato products. Now, yet we have the potential to grow tomatoes, and we are importing tomato sauce even from a country like Dubai. I mean, it's a bit insane. It's unforgivable. Let me say it's unforgivable that we can import tomato sauce and tomato paste from Dubai, and when you go to Kikomba every morning, we have tomatoes that are being thrown on Nairobi River. When you go to the farms, there are tomatoes that are going, there's a glut of tomatoes that are, you know, there's that wastage. Now, when you go to Western, for example, where I come from, there is a lot of land that is lying idle. Yet there is potential to grow tomatoes. Now, you look at palm oil alone, in 2019, we imported palm oil worth 60 billion. Now, there is a growth potential in Busia and Bungoma for growing. They have the climate for growing for growing palm trees, which will give us the palm oil. That potential has not been utilized. There was an attempt to grow palm trees to farm the palm oil, but the project did not go through. So that's a potential that is unutilized. Now, when you look at things like, for example, in terms of cereals, pasta, we have about $100 million worth of imports. Yet we have the potential to grow wheat, and we have not utilized that. So agriculture is a vast opportunity that companies can get into. But now the challenge is the approach of farming must change, because we've used the traditional farming methods. Now new technology has to come in. Now I had an opportunity to, if you have looked at, for example, the kibbutz way of farming in Israel, the technology in Israel has gone very high. In fact, they are the level we call the precision agriculture, where when they're doing the drip irrigation, they have the technology to send water to a particular plant as is needed. When the plant needs the water is when the water is taken there. So if it comes to upping the game in terms of agriculture in Africa, then we must also look at the element of technology. Now that also comes in terms of innovation. We have to do a lot of innovations. And this has been even with the COVID, the short period of COVID, you've seen the level of innovativeness that Kenyans have. But that's also an opportunity that the government has not taken advantage of in terms of mapping out the resources, mapping out the innovations that are among our young people, and then incubating these innovations and commercializing them. That also is a huge opportunity for industrialization. Yeah, so Africa has the potential to be the food basket for the world, so to say.
Thank you very much. That's
amazing. Just before, allow me to say this, just before we go to Perez, when you mentioned sweet potato, I was very excited because I'm working on a project for a client who's, I've developed for her noodles made from sweet potatoes. It's a unique product. Her impetus came from the Indomie noodles that come in from Nigeria. And that is a huge market. So I've developed an innovative product on making noodles from sweet potatoes, which is a very interesting product. So Perez, congratulations for what you're doing. And I think I'm also excited that I've made a contribution on that line.
Thank you, Roger. You are amazing. Every time you talk, I get a lot of wisdom, and thanks, Peter. Before I go to Peter, because I want to hear Peter talk to us about this thing of using pipes and sacks to grow. Before I come to that, if you have a question, you can lift your hand. There's that technology has shown us how to lift your hand. Please, you can click lift your hand, and I will pick you for a question, just a question or very critical comment. If you have a contribution to make, you can do that. So I will allow maybe a few people before we end the show. I'm going to Peter, then I'll go back to Perez in a few. It's an interesting conversation. Please, I hope you're learning. I hope you're learning. The reason we create this platform is for people to learn, to unlock potential, and to have people build their own, to actually save Africa. Tomorrow, Kenya, we cannot be crying that the government is not working. We can change things from where we are without complaining about the government. Let the government do what they can do. Let us do what we can do. So Peter, I'm coming to you, and let me just confirm that Peter is still with me. Peter, you've done some work with World Food Program. And my question is, what is the lesson you've learned? The last time we interacted, there was a farm that you did at Kikuyu, and you were able to do so much in a very small piece of land. Land has been one of the most scarce resources. We may want to do farming, but I may not travel from here to Nanyuki or from here to Kitale or from here to Kambani to get some sizable land to do farming. What can I do with the 50 by 100 that I bought? What can I do with the 1 acre that I bought? Please assist us to know, to have that knowledge, Peter. Intensive farming. I want to throw it to you kindly.
Okay, thank you very much again. Yeah, I think now with our vertical hydroponic system, it's really allow us to be able to grow food using very small space. Like for example, in a meter square, as I had said, you can be able to grow about 6 to 8 times more crops vertically. And at the same time, you know, hydroponics, you don't use soil, so there's no weeding. And then you'll be able to manage irrigation. And as I have said that actually the major challenge in agriculture is actually the water. Hydroponics uses 80% less water. And in terms of irrigation, it's our system does not use electricity because the way our hydroponic systems works, the water goes up by capillary, meaning that the water stays in the system. And that's what meaning that you not use a lot of energy. We have also been able now to develop the system which can grow all types of crops. Unlike other hydroponic systems, now we can be able to grow potatoes. You can be able to grow tomatoes, capsicum. You can grow root tubers vertically. And this is really help in terms of now the space that people require. So as you can see, we use locally available materials, and this has also helped to reduce the cost of the system.
Okay, Peter, is what you grow healthy? Okay, when you talk about without soil, I'm asking, and I just projected that so that people can see what you're saying. Sometimes to relate what you're saying with what happens may not be easy. So I've just shared that screen so that people can see. This is what Peter is talking about, hydroponics. And just let me show you what Perez is talking about, the products before we go far. This is what Perez is able to do. On your screen, those are some of the products that Perez has been able to do. Now, Peter, just before I go to the final round of questions, I can see several questions coming through. What would you say about the quality of produce that come from that kind of soilless farming? Because the question is, you're just using nutrients. I mean, we know that farming is about soil. So what about that? Is it good for consumption? Is it, Perez has told us we must meet the standards. Are we sure that the standards are met here?
Yes, of course, because in hydroponics, what we are trying to do is actually we grow a perfect crop by giving the crops the actual amount of water, the nutrients, and aeration it requires. So soil is really not important here. For nutrients, we use organic hydroponics nutrients. That one we get a lot from the sea salt, has a lot of nutrients. The full spectrum of nutrients you can get from sea salt. You are able to mask the sodium from sea salt and then get all the nutrients. We just need to give more calcium and nitrogen, which we get from organic source. In terms of the pesticides, we have developed biopesticides, and which we spray. We don't spray chemical pesticides. And you know, the crops grown hydroponically, they are very strong. So they are not attacked by many pests, most of the pests, because the crops which are attacked by pests are the crops which are weaker. And since you don't use soil, and soil harbors a lot of fungi, a lot of diseases are in the soil, like bacteria, nematodes. We don't use those heavy chemicals. Again, we don't use the herbicides because there's no weed. So you find that hydroponics is like you are growing a perfect crop the way God intended it to grow. Because like a crop like a lettuce, it grows within 25 days, as opposed to around the 60 days if you grow in the soil. Because here it's a really controlled environment, and you are able to give the actual amount of water it requires, the nutrients and aeration, because everything is there, and the crops just need to take the nutrients it requires at that particular stage of growth.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Please, Roger, Peter, Perez, you can drop your numbers, your contacts, your email. People will want to be getting in touch with you. I'm trying to scroll the questions, and what I'm asking is in line with what people are posting here. Someone is asking, does it mean that they have to bring the seedlings So that is from Caro. Peter, before I move on, does it mean that you have to bring the seedlings if you have to do the farming? All right. Hello, Peter?
Yes. The question, okay, for crops grown hydroponically, use the normal seedlings. The normal seeds that you use in the soil is the same seeds that you use in hydroponics. So
Okay.
you don't have to raise the seeds in a seed bed in hydroponics. You can do it in the system directly.
Thank you very much. I can see a hand lifting from Farnwell. I'm coming to you. Perez, let me come to you. Let me just confirm that a questions that are coming in, I'm able to tackle them, because people can keep asking questions. Perez, what are the opportunities for youth to engage in your program? I hope Henry, you're asking Peter. So Peter, there's a question on what are the opportunities for the youth to engage in your program. What is the cost of a small hydroponic setup? So those are two questions that before you answer, let me go back to Perez. Perez, there was a question that started here, and the question of how to go about exports. You have been able to answer that. Now, tell us whether, can someone engage in your sweet potato program? Please tell me. I'm vast like a layman. Can someone start a program?
I want to also be very smart and answer it in a different way that exposes the opportunities that are there. First of all, I must comment, you're very smart. How did you get to wear a suit and a tie or on a weekend? Some of us have even forgotten how to wear shoes, because we've been in lockdown for so long. So
I'm global. I'm hosting Paris from UK. How can I come with a t-shirt?
You should have warned me. I should have gone for my tie as well.
Not a
because
problem.
we are all in lockdown, so basically we forgot even how to wear high heels for a while. Yeah, but it's a good lockdown, so there's not much harassment. So I think I want to challenge the young people, especially, and I know I mentioned this earlier to you, that if young people are going to succeed in agriculture or in food in general, when I talk about food, I'm talking about different types of foods, not just food in agriculture for supplying fresh foods. I'm talking about doing great things, manufacturing, developing new products, for local and for global markets. I think there's a big space that is still exists for young people to get into. First, they're going to have to decide that they're going to be entrepreneurs with focus. You're not going to do this by jumping on one opportunity today and tomorrow you're asking people, oh, how do you export avocado? And then the following day, they'll be asking me, how do I get tomatoes to Europe? And then they'll be asking me what markets is there for, I've got people asking me what market is there for, say, for example, indigenous African vegetables. So for an entrepreneur, they're going to have to focus to say, this is what I'm going to do. They are prepared for the challenges that are going to come along the way. And I'm telling you, even I sitting here, sometimes I get up in the morning and I laugh at myself. I'm thinking like, I thought, once you get your master's in food innovation, packaging and everything, there is no challenge that can come that I don't know. But every day I am telling you, what I know just gets, it's like somebody wakes up having rubbed what I know. And I'm just faced with new. So it's not that when people see you succeeding, they think you're a master in what you're doing. But actually I'm succeeding because every day I'm tackling new challenges. Some of them are not even paper-based. Some of them require my own personal research and commitment. Nobody has answers, so you yourself must find the answers. So first of all, is to think about, you want to be in a space where nobody has been in. You see, and this, I've given you this example before of the local kiosk scenario, where people think this is what works. For young people to succeed in agriculture in Kenya, they must decide that they're going to do new things that have never been done before. So anytime they think of an idea and it says, okay, somebody says it's never been done before, jump into that space. Because I tell people I have no business doing what has been done before. Because all the solutions and all the problems that are there, you want to be in a space where nobody has done it before. And this is where you pioneer things. and you want to be committed to face the challenges, ups and downs. Most people say, oh, I don't have money, give me money, then I'll run a business. Trust me, sitting here, if somebody even gave me 20 million today, that business will fail flat if you don't have the commitment, you don't have the skills, you don't know how to nurture the talent that is required to run that business. So there are few things you must spend time as an entrepreneur. Don't just say, I want to grow tomatoes. Who do you need to grow the tomatoes? What are your teams? What are the core technical teams that you're going to develop? How are you going to nurture them to help you succeed in the business? Forget about the business of growing and farming for the first time. Just focus, what are the people I need a team? What are my skills? What am I deficient in? What do I need? Do your own self-assessment, skills analysis, and find out where you are. Who are the people you need? How are you going to bring them in? Then I need Kilonzo from Kenya. I need Samson Michael from UK to help me with technological advances. You need a financier somewhere who's going to put money in your business, who's going to trust you. You need to be a farmer, but you need to be able to collaborate. Because if you are starting as a smallholder farmer, you're not going to produce the volumes that will attract any buyer, for export. The problem with the export business is that countries that import food produce, they don't know about seasons. They want sustainable production. And now they've defined sustainability in many modes and ways. Not just about that you have to continuously grow, but you have to be climate change compliant. You have to be packaging compliant. So sustainability is growing every day. So are the regulations for food safety. Before we were worried about chemicals and we were worried about pesticides that hold their traces. In food, we are worried about preservatives that are not allowed in Europe. There are a lot of preservatives we use in Kenya that are not allowed here because they're dangerous to human health. But now we are worried about diseases. So it's real. The issue of COVID has brought in a whole new challenges for food safety, for food businesses, not just at farm level, at production level, at distribution level, at handling in between the supply chain. How do you keep food safe from the farms to the producer? So before you get into business of agriculture and where you want to supply, is to sit down and it's like collect yourself. Most of us will be getting to the business, you're all over. That's why every idea is in your head and you think you can do that, you think you can do that. But once you recollect yourself, you actually come to self-realization that you're only going to be able to do a certain amount, because you have limited resources, both human resources as well as financial resources. You have limited land. If you're going to increase your production, you're going to require more land. Yes, land is available in plenty, but it might be the land that is not suitable for the crop. And say, for example, I like what Roger mentioned about the palm oil. Do you know there's a big opportunity in palm oil? Because in Europe, palm oil is used in almost everything. It's a major ingredient in food production, literally, both for food for consumption as well as cosmetics. But now most businesses or manufacturers are moving away from palm oil. Why? Not because the countries that produce palm oil don't produce palm oil anymore, but because palm oil has been associated with the food insecurity with the countries that grow it. Because people are cutting, more or less that what we're trying to do with coffee and tea, you're cutting down, food crops so that you can plant crops for commercial. So then when you do that, you are creating food insecurity for the indigenous people. And this is what has happened to the palm oil growing countries. And most businesses, big and small in UK, Europe, and America, are now moving away from palm oil. They are finding alternative ingredients that is similar to palm oil. But I'm sure they can find palm oil in other countries like Kenya. They would prefer it because you're not cutting land, you're not destroying a crop that is already feeding people. Because food security is now a major for food manufacturers. You've got to demonstrate that your suppliers have food left for them, not just they grow and send you everything and they'll be eating bones while they're eating fish. So, and there are policies and regulations which are now monitored, inspected, and they've almost become like standards. that businesses have to meet. So it's a question of doing your own research locally, globally. What can you grow locally, naturally, but what does the global market demand? And don't always forget that you are part of this big globe. And don't be scared of thinking big. Don't think of UK only. Think of how can you export to America? What do American wants? What are the issues? They could be growers of the same product. Sweet potato is grown in America in very large quantities. But I'm telling you, as I'm sitting here, more people want my sweet potatoes from Kenya than they want from America. Why? Because America has so much industrialized, their sweet potato has no taste or flavor. Our Kenya sweet potatoes, you put it against the American, you'll be laughing when your consumers are eating. You just feel the joy because it's natural. It's not highly commercialized. It's not highly processed. So there are all those opportunities for us to find out what are the niche markets, the natural markets, the ingredients that we can supply. Focus on one thing. Don't try to supply everything to the whole world. Find one thing, collect yourself and succeed, and then find out how do I do it. So for your young people who want to do the sweet potatoes, the answer is, I've answered it in a very, very long way.
All right. But
the last thing that I want you to tell.
Yes, please. Yes.
Success, what I have seen in Europe and that made me successful, continuous research and development, non-stop. Every day you're sitting at your desk, 80% of your time is allocated to research and development. That is key to success. You're never going to do something then you say, I am a master in this thing. Even if you're doing crisps, you do one batch of crisp today, tomorrow your crisp must have another flavor. Don't give me crisp with salted crisp. I don't want it anymore because the consumer here is fast moving, just like they say, fast moving consumer goods. So you want to keep up with their longer the days gone when people used to eat like Weetabix, the same Weetabix. But you see, Weetabix, they're now considered family members because these are like, they've been there for time immemorial. So that's a different market segment. But if you're getting into food in now, it's a question of continuous development. And the challenge for us is that our African countries do not place emphasis, neither do they place funding in continuous research and development. Our universities don't support entrepreneurs. There are no technicians, there are no biologists working with the Kilonzo, there are so many people who are getting into food. They're not even microbiologists. They don't know what happens in your food when you make it, when you overcook it, when you cook it less. They just know, I want to go and get into manufacturing. And I'm sure Roger is laughing there in his industrialization.
Totally agreed.
So there's got to be either a government support service that provides microbiology scientists to work with willing and enthusiastic entrepreneurs. I'm not saying food entrepreneurs must all become biologists and scientists, but they must be able to have access to these people in a structured way that supports the industrialization. That is government strategy. It's not going to work if we can't bring all these people together. I'm so sorry. I'm giving you hard. But
I know. You have so many points. In fact, you've answered quite a number of questions that had come through. What should someone do? What are the strategies? And I just wanted to tell you, you have answered a question that had come through. What is the strategy of entering into the market? And again, coming from a different market or a different system, different from us, it's easy to tell us where we go wrong. And thank you, Perez. We can't have enough of you. I'm telling you, I have 3 minutes to close the show. I wish we had the whole night. I need to get answers from Peter. Peter, there are a few questions here, and then I will finish with Roger in terms of youth and entry into farming. So please, Peter, let me just go through quickly. Does using the hydroponic technology reduce the growth period of the crops being grown? Does using the hydroponic technology reduce the growth period of the crops being grown? That is one. The other one was to Peter. Can one apply the system of the system for sugarcane farming, or it's for specific crops? Peter, kindly you will answer that in at one time or at a go. In hydroponics, what is the difference? I think that's the point. What is the difference in terms of output between weak systems and NFT? I think the person who wrote should be able to understand that. I think it's from Tyrus. How much would it cost on hydroponics per square meter? So please, Peter, I have 3 minutes to end the show. Put those answers together and tell the people. All those questions are very critical. Please, Peter, come through.
Yes, I will start with the first one. Yes, the crops grown hydroponically grows faster, about 30% faster, and also the yield is higher. The yield is higher because you are able to space very closely because there's no competition of the nutrients, and it grows faster because you're able to supply actual amount of water, nutrients, and aeration the crops requires at the hydroponics. So sugarcane can be grown at the hydroponics. We have done citrus trees. So any crop can be grown hydroponically. So that one can be, but the question is it economical? So for sugarcane, I would not say that it's economical, but it can be done. So the other question was the cost. Our hydroponic systems are modular based. We have the lowest cost is 10,000. That's a system which can feed between 5 to 7 members of the family throughout the year. For leafy vegetables, 10,000. For commercial, we start from 60,000 Kenya shillings. And the payback period of all this hydroponic system is between 8 to 12 months. You will be able to pay the full cost of the hydroponic system. So the running cost becomes now the nutrients which we supply and the biopesticides.
All right, beautiful. I had Fanuel. Fanuel wanted to ask a question or comment, but I can't see him in the list. I think he must have left. Fanuel, if you're there, kindly put up your hand again. Then Ronja, let me come back to you as these are parting shots. Please, we always end the show at 11:45. I wish people were able to stretch it up to 11. There's so much information. I've just cut Perez. I've just cut a short. Roger, tell us, yes, what should a layman, what should a youth do? What should not even a youth, anybody who wants to go into this thing called agribusiness? Where should they start? You are in Kenya, I'm in Kenya. Of course, Perez understands Kenya like the back of our hand. I know it very well. But you know what you're going through. There's no support from government. Oh, okay, there's less support from government. There's so much talk of a big four agenda, which we don't see where it's ending to. Where can we start and salvage ourselves? Please bring it out in a very simple way in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, we have to understand that we are on our own. So if you wait for the government to industrialize, then we will die poor. That's a reality. It's a fact. Now, what we need to do is we have foundational issues that we need to address. Number one, the education system that we use right now is obsolete. When you look at all the industrialized nations, the developed nations, developed because of industrialization, yet in the education system that they gave us, there is no subject on manufacturing, there is no subject on industrialization. The question is, why did they hide it away from the books? Now, we have to discover things for ourselves. Now, when you look at the things that I've been able to do, like, for example, the soap business that I did, that I have, the soap masters, the natural soaps that I make. It took me 12 years to discover. No one taught me how to make soap. I had an interest, and I went into a lot of research and development, trial, experimenting until I got a product that was functional. Now, one of the things that we need to do as young people, we need to change our attitude. We need to change our attitude from waiting for the government to do stuff for us. We need to begin to realize that we need to rise up and do stuff for ourselves. Now, to inspire, there's a question that was asked here, the strategies that can be employed to interest youth into agriculture. One of the things that we lack here is we lack real-time statistics on the agricultural potential. Now, what we need to do is we need to have an active resource mapping for us to know the resource potential in terms of the agriculture, that the agricultural potential that we have. People live on land that they are not aware of. I'll give a very good example. When you come from people who come from Machakos, don't know that they have the best soil when it comes to fruit production. I met a gentleman in Dubai, an Israeli in Dubai, and when he knew that I was from Kenya, he asked me, okay, he mentioned Kitui. So I was like, how did you know Kitui? He said, there's a time we came there to pick soil, which we used to grow fruits in Israel. I mean, that bothered me a lot. You see, an Israeli comes all the way from Israel to Kitui to pick soil, yet the people in Kitui do not know that they have that resource. Now that takes me to the book that I wrote, Neglected Value. We have a lot of value that our youth need to be sensitized on for them to realize that we are sitting on gold mines, that we need to begin to untap and exercise a lot of innovation, engage a lot of research and development. Then we also have to use a lot of technology transfer, people like Perez, people like me to come in and empower these young people. Now, Geoffrey, let me tell you, the sad thing is that I've called for meetings for industrialization to train young people, even for free. And these guys don't bother to come, and they're just seated in the estate. So there's also a huge attitude problem that needs to be addressed for them to begin to realize that for them to be helped, they also have to help themselves. And then we also have to teach them to attach purpose and destiny on whatever they are doing. Because you find the reason why some of them would come to try something and after 2 days they've lost interest and gone away is they lack direction, they lack purpose. They're just living because of the day. So I think it's the huge part is the foundational issue. Because the education system is, when all of us were growing up, is work hard and so that you can pass and go to a good high school. The reason why your parent wants you to go to a good high school is because that good high school will ensure that you go to university. And from university so that you can get a job. So the system has trained us to be workers and not owners. So we also need to have that ownership mentality that comes into us. That is what will make somebody like Perez go to a foreign nation and embrace that ownership mentality. It's because at some point he shed away that slave, because there are a lot of Kenyans who are in the UK who've been there for even 30, 40 years, but they've just been working. For them, they know that job security is all they work for. And that's what they were defined to, it's like that's what they were created for. So I think for us, for the youth, they really need to work on their attitude.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Roger. You know, you're talking about attitude, and I want to thank everybody who has kept, you know, this long night. It's actually interesting that these Zoom, sessions are free, but today we got 55 people, logged in. Sometimes you wonder, why are people? It's free. Why are we not learning? I mean, that is the most interesting thing. But everybody who stayed that long, thank you very much. And I'm sure you're learning. Perez, I want you to tell people where they can get you. Then I'll go to Roger. Where can people get you? I can see a question for Peter. Do we require an expert to do your hydroponics? Please tell people how they can access you. Roger, then we close with Peter and we can call it a night. I'll truly appreciate. 1 minute, 1 minute each.
1 minute each. Jeffrey, you can share my website with them, or my mobile. I'm free to take phone calls, or just my Facebook. Tomorrow I'll be running a session on superfoods and ingredients. It would be interesting for young people who want to get into supplying some unique things. So maybe that's, they can come in and join in that and participate tomorrow. So I'll share both my Facebook, my websites, and my phone numbers, which I'm sure you have, but I'll send them to you, then you can share
All right.
I'm happy to take calls, so I'm happy to inspire or just have a shoulder to cry on.
Thank you very much, Perez. Thank you. Let's go to Roger, please. How can people get your contacts and where can they find you?
I've shared my number. I've shared my number there. There's also the website for my soap company, soapmasters.co.ke. So people can reach me on WhatsApp or direct calls, and I'm free to give support where I can, to encourage them and guide them. And for me, I would really want to see more industries come up.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Please, people asking about your experts, the people can set up their hydroponics. Someone had asked, where can we see a sample hydroponic farm? Please share your contacts. Where can they find you? Do you have an office? And if you have contacts, please drop them on the chat box. But say hi to us and as we end the show.
Okay, I've also shared my number at our website. In Kenya, we are known as Hydroponics Kenya. And someone has asked whether it is complicated. Hydroponics is simplified. Anybody can be able to do that. although we have registered International Institute of Simplified Hydroponics, because we realize this has not been taught in school. So it's a course taken 3 months, and youth will be able to learn about simplified hydroponics, the full value chain, and then try to connect them to the market and also to the financial institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And everybody, please drop your contacts. We want to share these contacts with you. We want to share the information with you. It was good having you at night. Next week, we continue with these discussions. Please get through our Facebook page, BIP Africa, Believers Economic Empowerment Program, also Eagle Wings Consultants. Those are my